Hello everyone, welcome to today's class, and our title today is Watchman vs. Axeman. And let's move on to language focus. 1번. Considering this, you would think that people would appreciate men in blue in their buildings. Men in blue is usually to talk about the police, but in this situation, this is in Australia at least. In Australia, we say men in blue. But in this situation, we're talking about 경비 아저씨들. So, we're focusing on you would think. So use you would think that to suggest something seems like it should be one way, but in reality, it is not. Now let me explain more. Let's have a look at this first example. Tony has lived in Korea for 15 years, so you would think that he would speak the language pretty well, but in fact, he still struggles with it. Let's break this down. Let's make this easier. Tony has lived in Korea for 15 years. 토니가 한국에서 15년 동안 살았어요. Okay. 그래서 토니는 15년 동안 한국에 살았으니까 그는 한국어 잘 하는 게 생각할 수 있어요. So you would think he would speak the language pretty well by now. Alright? 근데 토니는 한국어 배우는데 어려움이 있다. But in fact, he still struggles with it. 그래서 토니가 15년 동안 살았으니까 한국에 살았으니까 한국어 잘할 것 같아 라고 생각할 수 있어요. 근데 15 동안 살아도 아직까지 한국어 못합니다. Like me. Sadly. But this is when we use the expression you would think. 15 동안 한국에 살았으니까 엄청 오랫동안 여기에서 살았거든요. 근데 그래서 한국어 잘할 것 같아요 라고 생각할 수 있어요. 근데 못하니까 생각보다 달라요. It's different than what you thought. Or, let's have a look here. Why is Lewis upset? You would think he'd appreciate the advice we gave him. 루스는 왜 삐쳐요? 우리가 그에게 준 충고를 고마워할 것이라고 생각할 것이다. So Lewis does not take advice very well. Alright, so you would think he would take it okay, but he did not. Alright, pretty easy I think. Let's move on to 2번. There has actually been a few cases worse than this one, where innocent building managers were seriously injured, killed or driven to take their own lives. This is horrible. Absolutely devastating. If you're a person who does this and someone takes their own life, you are a terrible person. Okay. Use drive to with a base verb, 동사, to describe a situation where somebody is caused to take some action due to some sort of pressure. Okay. Drive somebody to do something. It's sort of similar to 몰아가다. So, example, if you drive somebody to commit suicide, it's a sad subject, but very common here. So, 차 사로 몰아가다. Or, so that's what we talked about here. Drive somebody to take their own lives is also very similar, is to drive to take their own lives. Similar. Drive to take their own lives. 자사로 몰아가다. Alright, quite a dark subject. Okay, The example, constant criticism from his supervisor drove Eufrancio to quit his job. So, criticism from his supervisor drove Eufrancio to quit his job. 상세, 끊임없는 비난으로 유프란시오는 일을 그만두게 되었다. Drove Eufrancio, drove somebody to quit his job. Or, because of the heavy course load, many first-year engineering students are driven to change their majors. 그 관중한 수업량 때문에 많은 공대 1학년 학생들이 전공을 바꾸도록 내몰리고 있다. Because why? Because of their heavy course load. Now let's move on to language focus quiz. You would think that a lot of people would want to, but actually not many do. You would think. So remember we talked about Tony, who's lived in Korea for 15 years. You would think that he would speak Korean well. He doesn't. So you would think a lot of people would want to, but actually not many people do. So you would think that many people want to go to university, let's just say uni, but actually not many people do. So 많은 사람들이 대학에 가고 싶어 할 곳이라고 생각할 곳이 있지만 실제로 그렇게 하는 사람들은 많지 않아. Which is true. I think most people don't want to go to university. 2번. You would think that would be a good but for some reason it isn't. Let's keep it simple. Idea, but for some reason it isn't. So 여러분은 이것이 좋은 생각이라고 생각하겠지만 어떤 이유에서인지 그렇지 않습니다. You would think. Alright. 3번. Drove me. 뭐라 가다. To reconsider what? Say, it drove me to reconsider my job. So this situation drove me to reconsider my job. 그것은 내 직업을 제거하게 만들었다. Last but not least, was driven to give up because he was driven to give up his social life because of work. So 그는 일 때문에 사회생활을 포기해야 했다. Right, now let's move on to the further discussion. 1번. What would you do if somebody left some furniture sitting outside your apartment building for 3 weeks? Would this bother you? If it's a big apartment, it probably wouldn't bother me too much. If it was like in front of my house that I own, like a house rather than an apartment, yes, that would be a little bit bothersome. However, you see it a lot. It's more common than this story has portrayed it to be. I see things sitting outside my apartment building all the time, and it doesn't usually bother me, or it doesn't bother me at all. But if it was outside my own house, where no one else lived, then I would be very annoyed. 2번. Do you have any neighbors who complain a lot about problems in your building? 당신의 이웃 중에 당신의 건물에 문제가 있다고 불평하는 사람이 있어요? No, but the main complaint that is announced over the PA, which is the speaker that transmits a message to all the people living in the apartment, is smoking. And a lot of people who live here still smoke inside their apartments, which also means that the apartments surrounding that apartment can smell the cigarette smoke, which nobody really wants to, especially if you don't smoke. I wouldn't say there are a lot of complaints. I've never had a complaint about our apartment. We've never really complained about other apartments, but I know that there are some situations out there where they have bad neighbors and they constantly complain, and it's a lot of stress to live next to them. So we're lucky that we don't have that. Anyway, that wraps it up for today, and I'll see you on the next class.
Wear many different hats.
Wear many different hats.
Gruff.
Gruff.
Haul.
Haul.
Take matters into one's own hands.
Take matters into one's own hands.
Chop up.
Chop up.
Chronic.
Chronic.